Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, and welcome to, well, I can't even call this my show because this is a show for all four of us. This is a four friends and a Pearl show. The last one was three friends and an ATEM. Who knows what the next one's going to be? But this is our little show where we bring together a bunch of different YouTube live streamers and try different technologies. So first, let's just get a round of introductions of everybody who's on the channel today. I am, of course, PhotoJoseph. Welcome to watching this on my channel for those of you that are here. Aaron, why don't you go next?
Hi, I'm Aaron Parecki. Thanks for joining. If you're not familiar with my channel, I talk about live streaming and usually the A10 Mini because I like that device a lot. But today we're talking about totally different kind of technology, and I'm super excited about it. John.
How about you, John?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I got distracted already.
We did, by the way, John, folks, we did a really good job planning what we were going to talk about today, just so you know.
I don't even know how to talk about myself. I run a channel as well called Here to Record, and I talk about, mostly these days it seems to be the A10 Mini Extreme, but really anything in the live production world, all that fun stuff. Curtis, over to you.
All right. Thank you, John. My name's Curtis Judd. I have a YouTube channel. We talk mostly about sound and lighting for video, but we also do a bit of live streaming on my secondary channel each week where we do a sound for video session. So that's where I got into the streaming world. And so the streaming world is interesting because I was, again, mainly focused on lighting and sound. And then I started doing a live stream, and it just became a passion project rabbit hole that I fell into and still haven't gotten back out of yet. So that's me.
Yeah, I can definitely speak to the rabbit hole part of this. So I started doing live, I don't know how long ago, basically, with a webcam, right? I was doing some type of live training, webinar type things. Actually, I think GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar is one of my first platforms, and just using a webcam. And now I've got more switchers than a small broadcast studio in a small town. It's kind of ridiculous now, but it's been a lot of fun. So let me give a little bit of a tech introduction to what we're actually doing and seeing. I want to make sure, first of all, that we do have good sound and picture out there, and we've got everybody's channels are showing, everybody's saying they're good. I'm getting excellent on my channel, so that's good to know. Okay, so first of all, if you are watching on my primary channel where you don't have access to comments, you should have an overlay on your screen. Oh, there is no overlay. I forgot to do that part of it. Okay, I didn't add the overlay. So if you're watching on my main channel at PhotoJoseph, that's not where you want to be. There's this link down below to go to the actual live show. Definitely go check it out there with the where you will have comments. I'm going to fix that in a moment here when I'm not talking anymore, so I don't do two things at once. But head over to the link that's down in the description below. So today we're streaming using a different tech than we normally do. We are all using something called a Pearl from the company Epiphan. So we are using a technology called SRT streaming. This is a different technology than what we've done in the past using the Blackmagic streaming bridges where we've streamed into my system and I've put everybody together there. With the Pearl, we're using something called SRT. And I think maybe Curtis or Aaron, one of you guys might want to go into a little more detail what that is. I'll not get into that right now. But effectively, hardware-wise, what's happening is each of the three other folks on the show are using a Pearl Nano, and they have whatever they're speeding into the Nano. They might have a camera directly in, they might have a switcher in, it doesn't matter. They're streaming, or they're feeding into the Nano, and the Nano is streaming an SRT stream to me, to my studio. On my end, I'm using a Pearl 2, which is the higher end, larger Pearl box, which can receive the SRT stream. So I'm receiving 3 SRT streams from them at once, and I've built up the layout that you see in front of you today, and I can switch it and so on. And we'll actually get into some of that in a little bit here. But that's what we're doing. Now, SRT is a one-way stream, just like you get with the Blackmagic box. So what that means is that the 4 of us are actually talking to each other on a Zoom call. So we are in a Zoom call while you guys in the public are watching the stream from the Pearl. So that's kind of the back end of that. Curtis, do you want to dive in a little bit on what SRT is and the differences between that and what we've experienced in the past?
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up. So SRT stands for Secure Reliable Transport. It is a UDP protocol that goes over the internet. Its main benefits are it's very low latency. We've had a pretty good experience with it so far in the initial tests we've done, and here we're pushing it, I think, for the first time a little bit harder than we have in the past. And the nice thing about SRT is that it's open source. So it is not just Epiphan that supports SRT. It's an open source protocol. Anyone can use it. Any device can use it. Any software can use it. Any software encoder can use it. So it was a very different approach that Epiphan took to Blackmagic, who set up these specific, they have their streaming bridge, which is basically hardware that you have to buy. You can then send a stream from, say, for example, an ATEM Mini to the hardware bridge, and then an HDMI out or SDI out from there. So this instead, they're using software and an open source protocol. Aaron, is anything from your perspective that I missed on that kind of highlights SRT?
No, it's a good summary of it. I think the main difference there is, it's actually open source as opposed to RTMP as well as NDI. NDI is sort of the other thing in this world which you wouldn't really use over the internet, but it's often sort of brought up in conversations along with SRT as well. But yeah, good summary.
And John, why don't you tell us a little bit about your connection? Because I think yours is different than the rest of ours, being that you're out in the woods somewhere.
Yeah, out in the woods somewhere. That's a good way to put it. So I don't have access to, not only do I not have access to fiber here in the house, I don't even have access to traditional broadband. So what I've done is set up a 4G router with a couple of antennas attached and on the roof, which are very precisely pointed in the right-ish direction. Without those antennas, I was getting about maybe 10, 15 down and like 2 up maybe. But with them, I'm getting about 50 down and maybe about 20 up. So it's actually allowing me to live stream from home here. Otherwise, it was never an option before that.
That's pretty impressive. So that in itself really tells you kind of the power of SRT and the quality of it, and the fact that it's so low latency. And he's just joining this conversation like anybody else who's, Aaron's on fiber. I've got pretty good high speed here. He's on a cellular connection from the other side of the world. We should point out he is not. He's not just down the street from us. That he is literally on the other side of the world.
Exactly, in Sweden.
In Sweden, and that is still streaming, and it's a direct. I guess the SRT, it's a direct peer-to-peer connection, right? It's not going through any kind of servers or any relay stations. It's just straight point-to-point, correct?
Exactly right, yeah. And we could have fine-tuned it a bit more on the delays and stuff to sync things even tighter, but it's pretty good out of the box, I think.
Yeah, it seems to be working.
It's a good point. We're using pretty much defaults on all of our settings. So we've got the three of us, the guests, have the Pearl Nano, the new one that just launched, and that there's a bunch of limits to it compared to the other Pearl devices, which is why it's the Nano and why it's a lot cheaper. But it can push an SRT stream to something. Actually, it can push multiple streams still. That's not one of the limits on it, which is super cool. So we've all set our Nanos to stream to Joseph's internet IP address at his studio. So just going straight there.
Right. And that setup was actually remarkably easy. In fact, why don't I do that? I'm going to pull up my screen in a moment here. Let me get this all set up on my side and show you guys some of the configuration. You can see how easy this was. But I know that you guys have already done shows on the Nano itself, but one of you want to just give a little bit of overview of what the Nano is and what it isn't, because I think this is an important thing to cover here in what the hardware is and how it compares to other things out there, especially the ATEM, which of course most of our viewers are going to be familiar with because we talk about it a lot. And you guys flip a coin. Who wants to talk about that?
I can take a first shot at it. I know Aaron and I have both done reviews, and I think John's getting ready to do one.
I'm working on it.
You're working on it, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
that's, from my background, I'm coming from a corporate video perspective, and so what I find interesting about the Nano, it's very different. It's not a mini switcher like the ATEM is. It's a very different approach, and I think what we're kind of illustrating here is a good example of what you might use the Epiphan Pearl products for. So in corporate video, for example, one of the things that I think comes up over and over again is the need to be able to bring in executives, in my case, executives from multiple locations around the globe into a single, for all hands meetings type of scenarios and things like that. So the nice thing about the Pearl series is that the Nano is basically, it's something you would, for example, take and set up at an executive's home with their camera and a microphone. It's more of a contributor type of device, but it has built-in encoders. It's a piece of hardware. I don't have an overhead camera to shoot what I'm using right now, but it has an Ethernet port. It has a couple of HDMI ports, an SDI input port, some USB inputs, and you just connect all that. You configure it via a web page, and you can start the stream and send that stream, in this case, SRT, over to PhotoJoseph's studio. So it isn't a full-blown switcher. The Nano, at least, is not a full-blown switcher like the ATEMs from Blackmagic are. It does allow you to do some pretty interesting and some interesting layouts, bringing in multiple sources. But then it's not until you get up to the Pearl 2 where you really kind of get the full-blown, I would say, switching capabilities, and you can have multiple layouts and switch between them. Is that kind of your impression too, Aaron?
Yeah. If I can jump in here too, I think I think you're totally on the right track with the sort of, it is made for executives or in a classroom setting where it's something that somebody will install and then remotely control. It's not something where you're expecting the person on camera to be the one controlling it, the way that you would like an ATEM switcher, for example. And one of the parts of that is if you have all your networking stuff set up right, where you have like VPNs and all that, basically the host of the show could be the one accessing the web page of the Pearl Nano remotely to start and stop streaming or configure it, so that basically you just ship this kit out to somebody, and then you can run the whole show that way. So I think that's definitely a good that's the target use case for it, rather than trying to think of it as a replacement for a Blackmagic switcher.
I agree. Yeah, I think that's a thing that a lot of us that do, I guess certainly the people that watch my channel, the more enthusiast kind of live streamers or running their own small business, to them, I think they're, to them, like the A10 Mini is like the perfect device. Why would I do anything else? But I think certainly in education settings and in corporate settings, it makes a lot more sense because, again, you're absolutely right. I'm not going to go to an executive's house and teach them how to do, how to run an ATEM and how to do downstream keys and all that business. I want to be able to control all that remotely.
Hey, John, why don't you put the image back on screen that you had? I'll put you full screen so people can see what this thing looks like.
Yeah, sure. I just grabbed this from the website there. You can see a quick look at what the device looks like itself. I don't have a shot of the back, but it's not as exciting as the front.
So it's quite small. It's not much bigger than a paperback book. It's a nice sized little device. You can tell that's an SD card slot on the front, so that'll give you some kind of basis of size comparison. So yeah, it's a nice little compact box. It's definitely quite portable in that sense. One of the features I really like about it is it can be powered over PoE Plus. So if you have a Power over Ethernet Plus hub, you can power it that way, which means just one connection and it's got your power and your internet. Plug a camera into that, and that's all you really need. But for most more advanced uses, you would be setting up a switcher. So you could use an ATEM for that or any other switcher on the market and feed that into it over its SDI and HDMI connections that it has. I think it could also take a webcam. Am I remembering that right?
USB
I think that
webcam.
feature's coming.
Oh, okay. I think it's in the other Pearls. But
is that the other
on the
Pearls?
Nano,
Okay.
it's coming later this year.
Oh, okay, cool. Right here, I want to show the setup a little bit. And actually, I just fixed this layout that I had built before. Let's see if it actually works now if I bring this up. Oh, and now I'm gone from it. Well, that's fabulous. I don't know how I broke that. Okay, well, I'm going to go fix myself in that layout. In fact, I will just do that on screen, and you can see what this looks like. So let me go to me and bring up the screen. There we go. Okay, so this is the software that you use to control the Pearl, and it's the same interface whether you're in a Pearl Nano or a Pearl 2. It basically looks exactly the same. You just have a few different options. And so to set up to receive from them, there's these inputs, and this is the Pearl 2 that we're looking at. I already have all these different inputs configured, but I built 3 unique SRT inputs. All you have to do is go to Add Input, you click on Add SRT, and then configure it. And let me go and I'll bring up one of them, like I'll bring up Aaron's. We'll see up here the status shows up here. So give it a moment. There we go. You can see the status on here, what I'm getting, the bit rate that I'm getting from him, the resolution and frame rate, and so on. So I can see in real time the status of that connection. Setting it up is super, super easy. You can set up, Rendezvous is basically an automatic way to do it, which I was able to configure internally, but for setting up to receive the streams remotely, I didn't bother even trying that. I just went straight into listener and caller mode. So on my end, I set this as a listener. On their end, they've set it as a caller. And then I assign a port, just any number will do. Doesn't really matter what you put in there. You can turn on encryption if you want to. And that's really it. And then I just need to give them the IP address with the port number. and assign port forwarding inside of my router. So it was pretty straightforward to set up. And then in here under the actual channel, this is what's called a channel where we see the show. Here I can see the status of the show that's actually live right now. So you see a bunch of information about that. We're seeing the mirroring effect here because you're seeing my screen on there. But then under here I set up the layouts. And in this regard, setting up layouts on here is kind of a lot easier than doing it in the, and I'll come back to it in a moment, it's a lot easier than doing it in the ATEM, because on the ATEM you have you have to go in and kind of move the boxes around by changing the points in the keyers, and there's no drag and drop interface. It's advanced, it's powerful, but it is a bit complex. Whereas in here you do have a drag and drop type of a setup. So let me go back to this, and you'll see in here I've got all these different layouts that I created, but I'll go to the one that you guys have been looking at, and here's that, my 4-up version 1. And here you see the different items. So I've got a background graphic on there that is just this graphic. And then that's my input, my camera input, which is coming through the ATEM. And then each one of theirs, which I can rearrange and resize. As long as I don't save it here, will be okay. So I could go in here, for example, and no, I can't move this around. Why am I not able to move it around? Well, anyway, I can oh, there we go. So I can resize and reposition things in here just by drag and dropping it. Now I'm going to I'm going to reset this because I want to fix this one where for some reason I'm not in here. So I'm going to go down to mine and just give you an idea of how this works. Looks like its cropping has gone weird. So I'm going to clear the cropping on that, crop the image here. And I know for this layout, I want a 2x3. In fact, here I'll set, well, I can't turn my camera back on here. You wouldn't be able to see it. And I'll position this wherever I want it. And I'm going to center punch this at 600. There we go. And now I've got what should be right in there. So if I go back to my camera, we'll get my camera on there. Let me save this layout and go back to me on here. Just take the screen off, goes back to me, and then I'll bring that up. And with any luck, there we go. We got that cool layout that I had built earlier to have a little bit of fun with the layouts. So this is really easy to do. Now, this is something you can't do without SuperSource on an ATEM. To have 4 up like this, you would need SuperSource. Whereas on the Pearl, the Pearl 2, you can do this. The Pearl Nano, I guess you do have this capability, but you don't have all the inputs. So you can bring one SRT input into a Pearl Nano. Isn't that right, guys?
You can bring an SRT input, but you don't get the same ability to do the crops and scaling on the Nano that you do in the Pearl 2. So you're much more limited in the way that it can deal with cropping.
Got it. Shows you how much time I've spent in the Pearl Nano messing with the layout. So, but anyway, okay. So
there's a question.
Yeah,
there's a question on my channel that's relevant. Does each remote Nano connection? Oh, this isn't going to work. Does each remote Nano connection require its?
Go ahead.
There we go. Does each remote Nano connection require its own port when connecting to the remote Pearl host? Yeah, and yes, absolutely, that is how it works. So Joseph has created separate SRT inputs for each of us, and each of the inputs has its own port, and then has configured port forwarding in his router for each of us again. So we all are streaming to different ports in his studio.
And what's kind of fun on my studio, the way I have things set up, I actually have 2 ISPs in my studio for redundancy. And because I do a lot of client work where I really can't afford to be offline, so I just have two completely separate ISPs. And my router allows me to route which ISP gets used for a specific piece of hardware. And so if I have no problem bringing in the 3 streams from them on one ISP, but if I wanted to distribute that, I actually could through the router and say, okay, John's coming in on one of my ISPs and the other guys are coming in on another one. I could route it up that way as well. I could also route it so that my outgoing stream is on a separate ISP than the incoming streams if I needed to load balance that way, which is pretty slick. But it's kind of cool with port forwarding how you really can control that, and of course with the dual ISPs, then I can really craft how I want the signal to flow, which is it's kind of fun. A little overly geeky, but it's a bit fun for sure.
Oh, it's fun. If you want to get really deeply geeky for a second, we can talk about how we're actually pushing this stream out to all 4 of our channels.
Oh my God, yeah, we should.
Pretty
totally
happy with.
Pretty
happy with how that ended up playing out.
Okay, yeah. So let me start on my end since this is the base of it. So again, their 3 streams are coming in SRT into my studio. I've put this layout together and all the other layouts inside of the Pearl. From the Pearl, I am streaming to my YouTube channel. I am also within the Pearl simultaneously streaming to my main YouTube channel. So I'm streaming both to my live channel and to my main channel. So again, for anyone who's watching on the main channel, which there are quite a few of you, I know you can't comment on there. That's not because I don't want you to talk to me. It's because I want you to go over to the new live show. So there is a link in the description down below. Click on that one. You'll be able to comment. Anyway, so I'm streaming to those 2 channels, and then I'm streaming a third stream directly to Aaron's studio. And then Aaron, you take over from there.
So I've got a server in my closet set up. It's a Intel NUC NUC, I guess, running Nginx, the web server, with the RTMP server part built into Nginx. And that is receiving Joseph's RTMP stream into that machine. And then that machine is set up to push that stream back out to 3 YouTube channels. So that's sort of like a DIY restreamer. And that is all happening in that computer in the closet. And I'm doing that here because I have a gigabit network connection here, gigabit fiber. So I have plenty of room to handle both pushing SRT stream to Joseph, handling an RTMP back, and then pushing 3 RTMPs up to YouTube. And on top of that, because we like to have redundancy and fallback plans, if Joseph's RTMP stream went out for some reason, then all of our channels would suddenly drop the live stream, right? So I'm also pushing to the backup stream on YouTube for all 3 of our channels. I didn't get Joseph's in there because he didn't give me the stream key. But the 3 of us will continue to be live if Joseph's internet drops out. And what's going to the backup stream right now is just a splash graphic with music playing that's sitting on actually a separate ATEM Mini over there. And that's just so that if something goes wrong, you don't just see it cut out. You get a little bit of music while we sort things out. And I've actually gone even further and set it up so that if we really needed to, I could take our Zoom call that we're on right now, pipe that into that ATEM Mini, and broadcast that out over the backup streams. So if everything fell apart, we would still be able to have a conversation and broadcast that conversation out on YouTube.
Wow.
Yeah, bit of a mess. Joseph, if you want to full screen me, I'll show you what I've got in front of me, which is pretty fun. This is what I'm looking at. You can see this is the Zoom call up here where I'm seeing everybody's Zoom feeds, and you're getting the tunnel effect on Joseph's, but that's normally where Joseph is. And then this is my multi-view for the ATEM. But then this one is just a monitor showing whatever Joseph is pushing to me. So I can just see whatever RTMP he's sending. It shows up there, so I can see if we're live. And this is the multi-view from my other ATEM Mini that's pushing the backup stream. And you can see it's just got the full screen graphic up there. And then that's my, this was my camera, which I can then switch to my computer screen if I wanted to. So I can show you on my screen, the computer screen, which is this. And now this is what you would see if we needed to fall back. And I would just, full screen this on Zoom, and then, hey, look, we're broadcasting live from Zoom, which now we're going to the tunnel effect again. So I'll turn that off. So a bit of a roundabout, but it's fun. Like, it's good to have backup plans.
It is good to have backup. Yeah, and this is where this stuff gets kind of crazy and fun. And we, because all of us on the channel do shows about live streaming, it tends to get very meta. We build things that we don't really need, but we build them so we can show you guys, the audience. And it, we all learn by doing this. This is how we figure this stuff out and just do it. And then when a client does actually need it, we're ready for it, at least in theory. But at least definitely fun. Hey, let's take some questions. I'm sure there's some questions coming in on different people's channels. So whoever's got one and wants to bring it up, just let me know. It looks like, Curtis, you just pulled one up. So I'm going to go full screen on you. Here we go.
Yeah, just a simple one from Jason. How is the audio routed? It is from the Nanos. So I have the audio is going into my camera, HDMI out into the Nano, and then Nano sends it along with the SRT stream. So it's pretty straightforward. Joseph, is there anything special on the Pearl receiving end as far as audio is
No,
concerned?
actually, it's pretty straightforward. So like you said, everybody's audio is coming in on their SRT directly. On my end, I've got my audio routed just because of the way my network is already configured. My broadcast stuff is configured. All my stuff is routed into the big ATEM, but that's certainly not necessary to do this. Again, we could just plug the camera straight in, and because I'm using the Pearl 2, the bigger one, if I had that sitting on my desk, I could plug a camera into one of the inputs and then plug my computer screen into another input and switch that way. I'm not doing it that way just because I wasn't about to tear apart my system to make it easier for the setup. I do have everything routing through all this other much more complex configuration, but it doesn't have to be that way. And audio-wise, my audio is just coming in over the along with my video, just like theirs is. In fact, here, let me show you this in the setup. Let me go to this screen and then to this. And if we, let's see here, look at these layouts, any one of these layouts, you'll see, so here's all the different inputs for video, and these are the different video layers, but then there's audio inputs are separate. So I have audio input turned on for, that's me, my ATEM2ME audio, but then I have audio enabled for each of the three of them as well. And I don't know why that one's on, but audio for the three of them enabled as well. So those are our 4 audio inputs. And then if I needed to adjust audio levels for someone, I can go into their, so can I actually change the audio levels on input? I guess I lied. I can't change the audio levels on the SRT input, so they would have to change it on their end. I can program in an audio delay, although I can't imagine why you'd need that. They should be coming in, audio and video should be coming in sync.
I think that would be a situation where maybe you were, like if you had a non-technical person streaming with a Nano, and you might want to be able to manage that for them.
Oh, so if you're saying like if I was getting the audio and video out of sync because they hadn't configured it properly, I could fix it on this end. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. And they can come in, remind me, are there are audio inputs on the Nano, right? So they could be out of sync with their video.
I'm gonna go grab my Nano because I'm not using mine, so I'm gonna go grab it and we can look at the back of that.
Speaking of latency latency we should do, when Joseph gets back, we should do the latency latency with the iPhone app.
Yeah, that was actually really impressive when we did that on the test the other day. I was surprised.
Yeah.
I always forget the name of that app. What is it called? And
it's Atomic Clock.
Atomic Clock. Yeah, let's do that for sure. Okay, here I'm going to go full on me again and just show this so you can see size-wise. You can see how small this is. It's quite compact here, quite small. You've already seen the front of it, but there's the back. Yeah. So let's see. I'm going to get out of the way.
Come on, autofocus.
Well, it's trying to focus on my face.
There we go.
So you can see the inputs. You've got XLR inputs for audio. You've also got the RCA inputs. You can bring in like just some musics that way. HDMI in, HDMI pass through. So whatever video you're feeding it, you can pass it through. You can loop it through. The SDI input, the PoE plus for power, and HDMI out for monitoring, and then the USB, whatever it is that's available for, and then regular power if you're not using the PoE plus. So yeah, it's a nice small little box. It works out really, really well.
So you can record to that the USB. You can connect to an external drive and record to that. You can record to the SD card. So there's an SD card slot. There's also a slot, kind of a proprietary thing. Well, it's not proprietary. It's an M2 SSD slot on the bottom of the unit. So you can actually unscrew a panel and put an M2 in there. Yep. And so you have a lot of options in terms of recording.
Very cool.
And just for reference too, those XLR inputs are line level inputs, not mic inputs.
Oh, okay.
Is my understanding.
All right, let's fire up the clock. Atomic Clock. I'm going to go to a different layout. So
thanks for the super chat. I appreciate it. Thanks for all the confetti all over my video.
Can't wait to. I got to get my channel, my new live channel, back up to monetization level. It's not there yet. The new one.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, everybody. Let's hear. Let me go 4 up here. All right, everybody, get your clock up on screen. So
I didn't realize I had a horizontal layout. That's kind of nice.
It does have a horizontal. Just rotate the phone. It'll go. There you go.
There we go.
So I'm trying to see it myself.
It's really hard for us but if you screenshot it and then look at it later, you'll be able to compare the numbers.
Yeah. Somebody do the math for us in the chat and let us know. Okay, I think we've given them enough time to screenshots. Because it's hard for us to tell what's happening there, but we know it is.
While the numbers are moving.
It is a very, very low latency. It's definitely better than we've seen with the Blackmagic. What do you call it? The bridge, the streaming bridge. Although I don't know, we need to do some.
I will say, we need to do some new tests because this last time I used a streaming bridge was extremely impressive latency. It was, I didn't do a proper measurement, but it felt like somewhere between 200 to 500 milliseconds, which is significantly better than the last time we did the joint live streams.
Right.
So they may have pushed a firmware update to stuff in the ATEM. Dan on my channel says sub-second. Can somebody do the math on the actual number of milliseconds?
Yeah, that's what we
Should be
really
able
want to see.
to. Oh, here we go. PhotoJoseph was 54.58, Aaron was 54.10, John 53.69, and Curtis 53.87. So with all within a second. And surprisingly, John was not that much farther off than the rest of us, even though he is in on the other side of the world.
on 4G.
On
no
4G,
less.
yeah.
On 4G.
Yeah, that is pretty awesome. Very impressive. Someone is asking me, this is a great saying, well, not asking me, saying a challenge for you all, do a stream out in the field, not in your studios for fun. LOL, so fully mobile. Well, we've done that actually. I did that just a couple of weeks ago using this box. This is the YOLO Live box. And this does use has a built-in SIM card, or you can add a SIM card to it, or just use your phone's internet connection. And it has a battery built in, so it is fully self-contained. This is a switcher and a live streamer. It doesn't do SRT, but you can certainly stream to YouTube from this out in the field remotely from anywhere where you've got a decent cellular connection. I did it from the top of the mountain. I had some issues because the internet connection wasn't great. The cellular connection wasn't great, but it works. It's pretty cool to do that. So yeah, if you need to go mobile, I think the YOLO Live box is a really, really good option.
So a question here, how is the latency for the panel? We are all talking to each other over Zoom, so we are dealing with normal Zoom latency, which is very low. It does exist, but it is very low.
Yeah. Yeah, so what you guys are seeing, the audience is seeing, is different than what we're experiencing. And the nice thing about that is we will not step on each other's toes talking as far as we're concerned. You might hear it with a little bit because of the latency. So if we were to go back and forth very, very rapidly and never step on each other's toes talking, you guys might experience a little bit of it, but that's where the latency you just saw, well under a second is the most that you would get, and it should be closer to what was it, like a third of a second on some of those, some of that. So that's pretty good. But no, we are not having to deal with that. So we don't have to deal with any latency or any hiccups in that. We are just on a Zoom call as far as we're concerned. Any other questions that you guys have got on yours?
Well, Philip from Epiphan is doing a great job in my chat, and maybe yours too, answering a lot of really difficult and good questions. So I just have a comment that I totally lost there. Roger said, I can't find it now, but he said, no shade on the rest of you, but Curtis's audio is crisp.
Yeah. Well, he is the audio guy. He wins for audio for sure.
Exactly.
Oh, speaking of Curtis's audio, I don't hear him.
My mistake. That was the worst audio.
That's
Worst audio ever.
Well, I missed all that because just after we were talking about audio, my AirPod decided to lose connection. So I have no idea what you guys just said.
Oh, nice.
I do have a note here from Epiphan Video. If we want to put that up in regards to, we were talking about latency just a moment ago. Whoever's manning the Epiphan Video account today says one big advantage of SRT is you can manually change the latency if needed. So if you're finding a consistent offset for one of your contributors, you can actually dial in how much latency you want to on the SRT stream. Kind of a nice feature as well.
That is cool.
That's a great point. And it just occurred to me that we didn't even experiment with that. So we're all using the defaults. And I just realized that in my settings, there's actually 125 milliseconds of latency set to Joseph. So if I look at my, right? So if I look at my settings here, I've got 125 milliseconds here. So
let me get you up in full. Oh, go ahead and bring that back up again, Aaron.
Oh,
I just put you full. Sorry.
This is what I'm looking at with the settings, and there's 125 milliseconds set there. And that means that we are in delaying our signal by that much.
So why would you want to delay the signal? And why would that be the default? That's
probably to avoid network glitches, because if you're going at 0 and there's any hiccup, you'll get dropouts.
So it's kind of like acting as a buffer?
Exactly. one of the benefits of SRT is that you can dial that in. So if someone has a really bad connection, which I thought I would have, then I can pull back and be a little bit more sure that you're going to get my video feed the way you want it.
Okay, so by adding the latency in, you are effectively building in a buffer on your own end. Is that right? Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, that is cool. Yeah, very cool. No, SRT seems to be very good, and obviously the quality seems to be very clean. From what I'm seeing on my end, it's very clean. I haven't had any drops or hiccups at all, which is definitely impressive. All right, any other questions coming up? And if anybody has questions, drop them into the chat wherever you're watching this.
Roger on my stream says, if someone could repeat their thoughts on who the target customer user is, that would be great. And I had my own sort of take on this. Is something I'm getting into a lot is sort of cloud production and bringing productions into the cloud. So in my use case, I wouldn't necessarily be sending this device to someone. I would have it myself, and I would take a local production and turn that into SRT and send it up into the cloud. And someone else on another side could do the opposite of that themselves. So for my use case, I can see a very different take on how I would use this device over time.
Interesting. Curtis, I know in your video you talked about a little bit about target market. You want to repeat that for anyone who hasn't seen your video?
Yeah, for sure. I think at least from my perspective as a corporate video shooter, the use cases, I could go to executives' homes, get a little live stream setup who would have a Pearl Nano at each of their locations, set up a camera, a microphone, feed that in, and then set up the SRT stream to the home office where they could then, to have them join, literally they push the stream button on the front of the device, and then I can basically take it from there by controlling it from the home office. So that's, from my point of view and the type of work I do, that's probably the most likely use case. Not something I could do with an A10 Mini. Like I couldn't trust them to run one of those.
Right.
I need to get my CEO set up with this actually.
Yeah, it is pretty easy to configure, and because everything is done through a web platform, you'd have to set up a VPN, but you could remote connect into somebody else's Pearl and do all the configuration and even all the switching from there. Again, you'd have to set up a VPN or screen sharing. Actually, yeah, forget VPN, just set up a screen share. So if you use something like, Jump Desktop or whatever screen share you like, and there's a million of them out there right now, you could fire up a computer in their home or office or wherever, and then just remote connect into that and take control of the Pearl completely and do whatever you need to do. So yeah, that's a pretty good approach right there, actually, because you can do that completely remotely. That'd be pretty good. If you needed to send out a kit, you could ship out a kit that has just a camera with a microphone on it and this hardware. Tell them to plug it into their network and include a laptop that's already configured with the screen sharing software, and they fire that up and you can take over from there.
And another thing that they do that I think is interesting too, they have integrations with CMS systems. So that's really kind of the type of thing that would help, especially I think for educational institutions. So for example, if you're teaching a course, you'd have a Pearl Nano, for example, in each of the classrooms, and it can automatically upload via FTP to a CMS system when you're done, and then archive that for later viewing in the CMS system. So that's one thing. There's also the Epiphan Cloud, which is a way to kind of basically remotely control multiple Pearl devices that are distributed. So that's another thing that, again, where it kind of would probably shine a little bit more in an educational institution environment or corporate setting.
Right. In that case, you wouldn't have to VPN or screen share in, would you? You could just take complete control from anywhere.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Exactly.
That is very cool. That's very useful. Someone did the math on the latency for us. They said Aaron is 0.47 seconds behind, Curtis is 0.69 behind, and John is 0.87 seconds behind. So between half and almost a full second, but not quite. And I'm kind of surprised that John's is that far behind. It didn't seem like it, but I guess it is.
Hey, that's still a win. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
4G.
Totally.
Out in the woods.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Sweden.
exactly. That's other side of the world
more than happy.
and on a 4G connection. I think that is pretty impressive. Someone is asking me too, how does the Nano compare to the Blackmagic Web Presenter? So very, very different animals. I mean, on the comparison size on what's the same is that they are essentially just the streaming device. It's the Web Presenter has one input. It's your SDI input, and that's it. It's not a switcher. You don't do any kind of switching on it at all. It's just meant to take in an input. So you could plug a camera in directly to that, but it's really designed to have some other switcher plugged into it. And then when you're streaming, it's you don't have SRT on there. You don't have that capability. So it's much more basic in that sense. It's a great product. I've been using it to stream my shows for the last month and a half or so since I got it. I do like the information display that you get on it. You get a lot of data about the stream, but otherwise it's pretty straightforward. It will also allow you to double it as a webcam connection. So if you plug your SLR, DSLR into the web presenter and then plug a USB cable into the web presenter, suddenly the web presenter acts as a webcam for your for Zoom calls or whatever. So that's kind of nice. So the Pearl Nano, very different. It does have extra inputs. It does have a little bit of layout capability, but it's got that SRT, the remote control capabilities like Chris was just explaining, which is a pretty big deal. I had forgotten about that Pearl Cloud bit, and that does make a really big deal for anyone who's just sending these out to someone so that you don't have to worry about them trying to configure it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and the scheduled recording and the automatic uploads of recordings and all that stuff that's not anywhere near the realm of what the web presenter does. The web presenter is a very specific tool just for getting an RTMP feed from one place to another.
Right. Very, very much a one-trick pony. It does its trick very well, but it does one thing, and that's
exactly.
it. Yeah, exactly. Someone said 125 milliseconds is nothing compared to vMix calls.
Oh.
Who else has got some good questions on their screen? There's got to be some coming in there.
Yeah, as a question, is SRT better and more stable than NDI? And I think for what we're doing here, you would never use NDI. NDI is meant really for local network video routing. It's meant for replacing SDI routing within a studio. So that's really more of what you're doing. Internet stuff, you would never push NDI feeds over. NDI feeds are not meant to be efficient. They're meant to be high quality, huge amount of data going over that feed. So I would not compare them in this use case. I, however, don't know how SRT compares for the local network use case. The other way around.
Right, and there is also Dante now has video transmission as well and I don't know if that's just local networks or if that's also, over the general internet. But SRT is probably in terms of the ones that I've used firsthand, probably the most impressive so far. I mean, what we've accomplished here today. Going into this, I was like, fingers crossed. I think it's coming out pretty well though.
Yeah. It definitely is. It's funny. I keep hearing little audio glitches, and then I remember, oh no, it's actually my AirPod. For whatever reason, my computer just doesn't like to connect to my AirPods very reliably. So that's the glitches that we're getting is that, or maybe Zoom. But certainly, I think that the actual feed going out is doing just fine.
Actually, on that note, I've been reviewing the stream, and there are the odd little video glitch happening there. So it would be interested to take a look afterwards and see. I am seeing on Curtis and I'm seeing on mine the odd time, and I've seen on Aaron's too that the bottom half of the screen sometimes just blurs out. So I have no idea.
Blurs like it's dropped in resolution, or blurs like it's freezing or static?
It looks a bit like that. It looks a bit like really, really low blurred resolution, but I've just caught it in the side of my eye and somebody just commented there. So it'd be interesting to check that out afterwards and see.
Yeah, we'll have to.
But I do have a question over here, which was from a buddy of mine, Mateus, and he says, maybe I missed it from earlier, but what cameras are you guys using? And and this is the best part, have you been doing any color matching before going live? Well, in my case, I'm using the GH5, and I certainly didn't discuss any color matching before going live.
Yeah, I'm using the G7 like normal for my stream, and it's there's no adjustments. It's just straight out of the camera.
Curtis, what camera are you using?
Canon C70 today.
Okay, so Curtis is the odd man
default.
out without a Lumix camera over there.
If it helps, I do have a Lumix cameras just in case Panasonic's watching.
I was going to say if you were on a Lumix as well, I was going to be like, wow, I didn't even pay you guys to do this, but thank you. No, and I'm on a Lumix as well, of course, and mine's the BGH1. However, my color is a very customized profile, so mine is not set at default. It's actually a log output that has a custom LUT that I've had built for it to get the look exactly the way I want it for a lot of different uses, but that's what's being used right now. So no color matching whatsoever. I think it helps though that, we all have different backgrounds. And so if we all held up color charts, I'm sure they would look different. Everybody's chart would look a bit different. But because we all have a different color background, and obviously our skin colors are not identical, any variations that you'd see are going to be pretty hard to notice. As long as we have good color to begin with, I think it's going to look pretty even. Maybe black levels might be something you'd be able to tell a difference in, but for the most part, I think it looks just fine. It does look good. I think it looks very good. Looking at I keep looking around because I'm looking at different monitors, different places of looking at the stream, but I'm looking at it on a Ninja screen. It looks really quite clean, coming straight out of the Pearl. I like this layout. I like this little 4-up layout. This one's kind of fun.
I do like it. Yeah. Props to the guy who made this.
It's funny. We were talking about the layout capabilities within the Pearl 2 and the dragging of the boxes around, which is super easy to do. You can get very precise, and I have to admit I was going crazy trying to figure out how to do it, and then I remembered that I had to look in the manual. There's some strange controls that don't necessarily make sense, but once you understand them, then it's like, it all comes together and makes sense. But you got to turn the right things on and off, or else you're just banging your head into the wall trying to figure out the layout. So if you are playing with layouts in one of the more advanced Pearls, read the manual. just read that one page in the manual that explains how it works. Your life will be much easier. Definitely. Somebody in my chat is saying, I would love a Webcaster X3 upgrade from the X2. Yeah, I certainly can't comment on behalf of Epiphan for that. They killed the X2 at exactly the wrong time. It was very very, very unfortunate. The ATEM, the original ATEM Mini had just come out, which did not have a built-in encoder. The X2 was a perfect companion to that. And I'm sure that they had already, long ago made the decision to end of life it. And then that product was killed, and then COVID hit, and everybody was streaming from home, and people were selling them on eBay for like triple and quadruple the market price, which was kind of ridiculous, but it is what it is. And they haven't come out with an X3, so it's unfortunate. I would love to see one as well, but I guess the Pearl Nano is the closest thing to it. It's slightly more expensive, but it'll do the job. Someone's asked me how many cameras can you connect. So to the Nano, you can't use both the SDI and the HDMI at the same time, right? It's just one or the other.
You can.
Oh, you can.
You can both switch between the different layouts and do picture-in-picture, basic picture-in-picture, not like what you've got on your feed right now.
Okay.
You can do some picture-in-picture layouts with the 2 video sources, which is it's cool.
Okay. Oh, that's right, because you would do, you'd put your camera into the SDI and then your screen into the HDMI and use that for doing a slide presentation type of a thing, right? Okay. So 2 camera inputs, one on HDMI, one on SDI. If you want more than that, then you go with an external switcher, and the cheapest way would be to get the original ATEM Mini that's only $300, and that would give you 4 inputs, which would then use the HDMI input on there, but obviously that's fine. So.
Your Pearl 2 has more video inputs, though, right?
Yeah, the Pearl 2 has quite a few. Trying to think, it's got 2 SDIs, I think 4 HDMIs, and a USB input you can use as a webcam, plus the audio inputs. So you can, and the way that I've never tried using all those inputs in 4K. I don't think that it can handle that. I think it can handle all the inputs in HD. But the Pearl 2 that I have has the 4K upgrade, and so it can ingest and do layouts in and stream in 4K. I very rarely do that, very rarely do it in 4K, but it can. So you do have that, but I think if you go to 4K, you can't use all the inputs. I don't think there's enough processing power for that. In fact, it'd be interesting to see the processing power, what's happening on the Pearl right now. Let me switch back to me and go screen here. Let's see if I look at where is it? The info page? Yeah, here we go. Okay, system load is only 36% right now. So this is an HD stream, not a 4K stream, but that's pretty impressive. 36% system load only, bringing in 3 video streams, 3 SRT streams, and streaming out to 3 channels, and it's only using 30%. So I think this hardware is pretty efficient in that regard. Actually, I'm really impressed with that. Actually, I expected it to be higher. I thought I'd pull it up and it was going to say like 70%, but 30%. There you go. Nice.
Another note to the Pearl Nano will be, my understanding from Epiphan is that they will also have a 4K upgrade later this year. So if for some reason that's important to you, that's another consideration. I actually went down the path of building out a 4K streaming rig, and it's a lot. It's hard. It's really hard. Let me just say that. And it's expensive too.
Yeah, it can definitely get expensive. One of the hardest parts is, in my experience with doing 4K streaming, was where I originally tried to do 4K years ago, was with the screen sharing, getting a screen up on the stream. So if you connect your, let's say your Mac or PC and you're using an ATEM switcher, every input into the ATEM has to be, not the mini, so we're talking the bigger ATEMs where you get 4K, so an ATEM 2ME production studio, that would be the 4K one, has to be identical resolution and frequency inputs. So if I got a camera connected at 3840 by 2160 at 2997, my screen has to be shared at that resolution as well. And no one wants to look at a 4K screen in 4K because everything is microscopic on the screen. So you have to find some way of scaling that through, which can be very, very complicated and expensive. And in fact, the way that I've been doing it lately, which has been brilliant, is using Mimo Live. And it's a bit of there's a lot of pieces involved, but the Mimo Live software will allow me to capture a screen or any part of a screen at any resolution and scale that to any resolution for output. And so I'm doing the scaling in software and then outputting that over a Blackmagic Ultra Studio, which is fed into the ATEM, which gives me any resolution screen that I want scaled to HD or 4K or whatever I happen to be streaming at. And that actually works out really, really well. Gives me a lot of flexibility. That's one way to do that and stay in 4K. So actually, now that I think about it, with that in place, I could start streaming in 4K again a lot more easily than I could in the past. I don't know if I really want to. There's not much benefit to it, but it can be good. No, I know, Curtis, you do yours. You don't do full 4K, right? Aren't you kind of somewhere between 2 and 4K for your live streams?
Well, I've gone back to HD for the time being. So I have an ATEM 2ME as well, and a Tascam encoder that sits on the other side of that. So that's how I do the 4K encoding. But I've been running into issues with mismatches between video and full levels, and so I haven't sorted that issue out. So I've kind of put it on hold for now until I have enough time to dig in and figure out what's going on there. But something funny going on, I think, with the encoder.
Gotcha.
That could well be user error.
Well,
this guy, not the encoder, but this guy.
Going to your point that its stuff does get complicated for sure.
Yeah.
Anybody else got any questions that are on their screen that they want to pull up?
Yeah, actually. This question is, does the Pearl make SRT only solution? For example, you want a solution to have 4 to 10 gamers send their stream, but need to be budget friendly. So yeah, that's a good question. This is an SRT only solution, and we're all pushing SRT feeds around to make this happen. And we happen to be pushing from a Nano to Joseph's larger Pearl, but the Pearl accepts any SRT feed. So anything that someone can use that has that can generate an SRT feed could work with that. And Joseph has the expensive Pearl, the very large one, so I wouldn't necessarily call that budget friendly, but that's the one that can do the 4-up layout, and I probably even more than that. I don't know what the limits are on that. The Nano can also accept SRT streams, but I don't know how many or exactly what the limits are around that. But it is cool that it can also do SRT inputs. So there's that.
That would actually be good to test. We should try that at some point, guys. We should see how many of us can stream to one of your Nanos and see what happens. Given that my CPU pull is only 36% and I'm pulling in 3, as long as I had the bandwidth for it, which I do, I got a gig down. And of course, we're talking about the download bandwidth on my end to receive their streams. And, they're only streaming me, 6 megabit or something, so I could easily take in more. It would be interesting to see how far we could go, how many we could push. I don't know, what did they ask for, 8 to 10? I don't know if you could do that many, but
yeah,
we would need that many more Pearl Nanos, though, out in the field. So I don't know if anybody out there...
Other SRT encoders.
Or, it's true, other SRT, that's right, because you can do it even through a web thing. Curtis, didn't you do an SRT stream through a web portal or something at one point?
Yes. Yeah, there's an online service, and I'm trying to remember the name of it. I did it, Pearl, or the Epiphan people were kind enough to have me on their live stream, and we used that. So that was before I had the Nano. It was just a software encoder that you run on your computer, and it sends it to a service that creates an SRT stream. So there are software solutions as well. Gosh, give me a minute here, and I'll try and find
How is the
name
latency
of
on that? Do you remember?
I don't know that we measured it like we did here with Atomic Clock, but in terms of the final result, it seemed very much like what we were doing here today.
Wow.
So there didn't seem to be a big difference.
Okay. Now, I will say
yeah.
that in general, hardware-based encoders are always superior to software-based ones. But it sounds like that worked pretty well for you, so that's awesome.
Yeah, it was a pretty simple use case. I mean, it was just me, one camera, and a microphone, so it was pretty straightforward.
Great.
If you're going to stream gameplay, I don't know what that's going to look like.
Yeah.
I mean, or if it's just the people playing the games, that's one thing. If it's the gameplay itself, I don't know.
I think it would be just the people themselves in their use case, because the people watching wouldn't be watching multiple game screens at once. They'd be watching one game screen where all the players are involved. So the host presumably would put that on screen and share that, and then just bring in all the different players as inputs in little PIPs in the top, which would be kind of cool. That'd be really cool, actually.
Oh, Epiphan says, generally speaking, the Pearl 2 can support up to 6 SRT inputs, but it depends on what else the system is doing, of course.
Okay.
That's good to know. Yeah.
That's interesting. It certainly seems like it could handle more given the CPU load that's on right now. But well, we need to get some more people.
I'm sure it also.
Look, they were stepped on each other finally. We should find some more people who have nanos. I know the Epiphan guys would know who they are. Maybe they can put us in touch with some, and we can just stress test this and see how far we can push it.
Yes. One note. I haven't confirmed this one. We'll come back to this one, but the name of the service is Rivet. That we used to do the SRT software stream. And then somebody in my chat says that it looks like OBS is able to stream an SRT. I haven't confirmed that, but that would be super interesting if that's the case.
Yeah. Wow.
I was able to get OBS to receive an SRT stream from the Pearl Nano. That was the first thing I tested before this show. I was like, oh, I should see how to set up the SRT streamer from the Nano. And I was like, what do I have that can receive? Well, OBS on my laptop, it turns out. And it was so easy. It was just like, I go into OBS, make a video source, tell it it's SRT, grab the IP of my laptop, plug it into the Pearl Nano, and suddenly that video appears on the laptop.
And you were using the rendezvous setting on the SRT encode?
No, that was the caller and listener mode.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah. It was going over my VPN, actually.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool. All right, guys, let's get the last couple of questions in here and then wrap this thing up. We're coming up on an
I was
hour.
just reminded on my end here that there's an app on iOS. I don't know if it's on Android too, called Larix Broadcaster, Larix. You can just download that for free, and then you can use the cameras on your iOS device to send an SRT stream. So that would work too.
Wow.
Yep.
Huh. Larix. Is that a free app? No, I want to see if I can add one and pull it into the call.
It is free. Yep.
All right, who else has got questions? You guys do that. I'm going to see if I can
Android.
see if I can do this live. Set up a Larix stream and pull on from my
Wow,
phone.
that's very enthusiastic, Joseph. I'm interested to see how this pans out.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, Larix Broadcaster. I've actually downloaded it in the past and just re-download that.
There you go. You already have it. And I did get a question here. Do you think Blackmagic will incorporate SRT into the ATEM Mini Extreme line? Anyone have any thoughts on that? I'm sure that they won't go for NDI, which a lot of people ask. But as for SRT, I don't see why not. My guess is, though, they'll build some version themselves. That's what I think they would do, probably.
Well, they kind of already have built a hardware solution for that, right? I mean, basically the streaming bridge is that, but they get to sell something. The problem with SRT is they don't make any money with it. They make a more valuable device, but they indirectly potentially sell more ATEM minis. I think it'd be awesome if they did, honestly. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, it's hard to speculate on that, of course, because who knows? Who knows?
It's a business decision, largely, I would think. Well, maybe there's a processing thing as well. You'd have to have a decoder and an encoder that does that as well. But
I'm giving up on my AirPods. I picked up my phone and it grabbed the AirPods and I couldn't get it back. So I'm on cans for the rest of this.
Joe on my channel asked about the Nano receiving SRT, but it definitely does. It does. You can. I don't know the limits. I don't know how many SRT feeds it can receive, but it can receive at least one. So that's pretty cool.
And if Epiphan's still in the chats, if they could let us know, that would be awesome. And just to that app again, is it spelled Lorix? John, was that what it was?
L-I-R. No, wait. L-A-R-I-X.
L-A-R-I-X.
Yeah.
L-A-R-I-X. Okay, cool.
I'm trying to figure out how to set this up right now, but I don't see where it says SRT. I think this is...
Yeah, I guess...
Just...
Let me make sure I got...
Go ahead, Aaron.
I was just saying, I wonder, I guess technically I could set up SRT receiving on my Nano here and push my phone's camera to it, just as a fun test also.
And we have confirmation here from Epiphan. Nano can receive
great.
one SRT input.
One.
Okay, great.
Well, I can't figure out how to set up a SRT stream from the from Larix right now, so I guess I'll have to actually read the manual.
Yeah, I
for
was
that.
gonna mention that it's not the most what I would consider user-friendly experience, but what you can do is there's an app or there's a website where you fill in all the details, and then you can send, I think it's a QR code to someone, and then opens up the app with all the details pre-filled in. So
cool.
while it's not so easy for you to do it on the fly here, you could send the link or the QR to somebody else that you want to join your stream, and they don't have to mess around and try to get in there.
Got it. Neat. Very cool. Alrighty, shall we wrap this thing up, guys?
Yeah, I'm impressed. I just wanted to say, Joseph and Aaron, you guys are super enthusiastic about trying new things right on the stream. I have nothing but respect for you for that. Good job.
I think someone called it insanity, but that's cool. Thanks. Appreciate it.
I know. I screwed up when we weren't trying new things enough times.
I figure at the end of the day, what's the worst that could possibly happen? You know, the show's almost
Right.
over. If I kill it,
End
I kill
early.
it. All right, let's get a little sign off from everybody. Curtis, why don't you go ahead and go first? Tell people where to find you and where to subscribe and all that good stuff.
Yep. So people are Curtis Judd on YouTube or Curtis Judd Audio. If you're an audio nerd, specifically a nerdy nerd, we call them, over on the Curtis Judd Audio channel.
John?
I can go next. You can find me at heretorecord.com or on YouTube at here to record. And about 1 more week's time, I have 1 more week of my full-time job left, and then I am unemployed, freelancing, content creating. So if you need any consultancy help, then you can find me over there too.
Excellent. I'm Aaron Parecki and Aaron PK on most of the platforms. Instagram, AaronPK_TV, posting stuff there about the A10 mini stand that I've been working on and other fun stuff. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Very good. And I'm PhotoJoseph, of course, and you'll find me at PhotoJoseph on all the socials and on YouTube. And please do subscribe to the new PhotoJoseph Live channel if you haven't yet. That's just youtube.com/PhotoJosephLive to make sure that you catch all of the live shows. And that's that. I just created a new layout for the end show. I realized, or for an end screen, I realized I hadn't done that yet, so I just created that. That shows you how easy it is to create a new layout in here. I guess I should probably hit save, and then I can push that live. So thanks, everybody. It was great seeing you all today, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.